Hello and welcome to Nourish. My name is Kasia and I'm a health and wellness entrepreneur and student of Taoism and Chinese medicine. On this podcast, I share the stories and tools from Type A high achievers who have discovered that elusive state of balance between success and fostering connection, purpose, and inner awareness. Think yin and yang in flow. Now, I speak from experience when I share that I know firsthand how difficult it can be to integrate the two. I'm a Type A Capricorn who spent 11 years ruthlessly climbing the ladder of success in Silicon Valley. But for me, hustling without balance just led to burnout. We need to nourish ourselves proactively. I hope this podcast offers you inspiration on ways to do just that, so you can live the life of your dreams. Now let's jump into it. Hello and welcome back to the Nourish podcast. Today we are talking all about seasonal living, most specifically how to transition into the winter season according to East Asian medicine, Chinese medicine. I spoke with the absolutely incredible Ann Woods, who is an acupuncturist and the founder and visionary behind the Garden SF in San Francisco, California. She publishes a beautiful zine, which is all about transitioning into living with the seasons, living in alignment with nature. And she shares some of that knowledge with us today. So we talk about the 5 seasons according to Chinese medicine. We'll talk about why there are 5 and also how to live in harmony with them, especially in a world that can so frequently feel so disconnected from nature. So if you're looking for tools and knowledge about transitioning into the winter season, everything from how to eat, how to move, how to take care of both your body and mind, this is the episode for you. And without further ado, let's jump on into it. Ann Woods, I feel like I have to say your last name because it's so beautiful. Welcome to the Nourish podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. So nice to be here.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a long time coming, and just hearing about your entire journey from when we first met through to you launching this beautiful garden. I can actually call it like launching a garden, but it's really the garden, your beautiful acupuncture clinic, and all the things that you have going on. I mean, I'm so glad to be diving into all things seasonal living, acupuncture, and your zine.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, can't wait to dive right in. Let's do it.
Oh, we've got a lot. So before we start, though, I'm going to kick it off with a question that I love to throw at everybody when they come on the podcast. And that is, what are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
I love that. Also, amazing question. That's a question I ask everyone before they start working with us at the garden.
Wow.
Yeah. So my 3 words are kind, loving, and curious.
The loving one definitely radiates from you. Like immediately when you got on the call, I was like, wow, okay. It's almost like being in the presence of meditation,
Aw,
like meditation as in, yeah, it's just, you could feel it. So I think it definitely radiates from you. And I think the listeners will be hearing that as well. So let's jump into all things seasonal living. And this one is one that I'm super excited about because, as you probably know, as a practitioner and healer, teacher, that a lot of healing takes place outside of the clinic. Like there's so much that happens in the clinic, but how we live our lives day to day really can influence how we feel, how we heal. I didn't mean to make that rhyme. So I wanted to start by asking you a bit about some of the principles of Chinese medicine and lifestyle. Like if you can kind of give us a quick overview around how Chinese medicine views a balanced lifestyle or how you should approach a healthy lifestyle, I would love to get your perspective on that.
Sure. So Seasonal living is really just one facet of Chinese medicine, and Eastern medicine as a whole. And what I really love about this medicine is that it's customized. So I know everyone is so hungry for answers of like, just tell me what to do. We have social media telling us what to do. We have all these experts that are telling us what to do. And what I really like to share with everyone is it's not really about that, it's about you. And so we can pull from these ancient healing methods and wisdom and texts to figure ourselves out better. And really that's what it's all about is how can you live authentically? How can you balance your energy? And how can you use sort of what you've been given from birth to help yourself heal? So I always like to tell people, I'm really just going to be your helper and your teacher and your guide. I don't want to make the change for you. I think it would be so much more powerful if you did this for yourself, right? So when we work together, we're going to work on a team. I'm going to ask tons of questions. I'll be the detective and figure out your Chinese medical diagnosis. We'll take your pulse and your tongue diagnosis. I'll listen to your story, and we'll use all the tools that I have up my sleeve to create a lifestyle that makes the most sense for you. And Chinese medicine is incredible with this because it is empirical medicine. It, at its source, is natural medicine. It's one of the first, right? So we can use what we see and what we observe and what we feel from nature to help ourselves and to heal our bodies.
I love that. And there's something so soothing about what you just said, and really how I've always felt about Chinese medicine from that perspective, how really deeply personal it is, almost like a coming home to who you truly are, like what your body can really feel like. And so I'm curious on this kind of topic of nature versus nurture, or really like what is inherently within you versus the environment around you. Chinese medicine is definitely influenced by the seasons, right? Like that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. And so I think it's interesting that you call out that there is this aspect of individualization from the perspective of, East Asian medicine or Chinese medicine. How much does individualization play in versus also kind of going with the cycles and flow of nature? And I can even come up with a specific example, right? The concept of like night owls versus early risers, like the folks who, really feel pulled to like staying awake. I know that in studying my very early studies, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, of Chinese medicine, there is this concept of, what is kind of like the natural cycle of the day. So how much do we factor in terms of your recommendations, following your innate body's cues versus environment? Is it like something that also changes, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's such a great question. And, I have a background in psychology, so I also love this question and think about it a lot. Really, what it boils down to is we have these seasons, we are nature, right? And our bodies will perform better and feel more alive when we live within the seasons in this way. And it's just easier, right? So it's almost like the path of least resistance. So if we think about it this way, if it's freezing cold outside and you're living on the East Coast and you go out in your summer bikini, how is that going to make you feel, right? Versus someone who is wrapped up in long johns and a proper coat, and their belly is covered and their low back is covered and they have a hat on, right? So there's just some things, like really obvious things that we need to do in order to work with our environment. And what I'd also like to add too is we're all born with our constitution, right? So in TCM, we talk a lot about constitution, and it does fit into a method. Without organization, it's chaos, right? So we do have the structure in order to explain how constitution can affect your lifestyle and also how the environment affects your lifestyle. So what we do is we help people understand what their constitution is from the get-go. And then from there, what are they doing in their life? How are they living their life? What choices are they making? And what habits do they have that are maybe just habits and not actually what's best for their body? So it's all about introspection too. We want people to listen to, yes, what is natural for them, but also what are they trying to achieve in their life and what are the goals? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good way to explain, like, kind of how to balance between the two. Because, and I'm noticing a shift culturally now towards more introspection, of course, with, mindfulness being a thing. But it's just so interesting. There's so much research out there that shows what a struggle it is for folks to even tap into what am I feeling? Like, if you ask a lot of, unfortunately, like younger kids, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling happy? They actually struggle to explain that. I was reading a recent article about this topic. And so tuning into your body can be so hard. And we're, in a way, accustomed to being told that, this is what you eat, this is how you move. So I really love the reframe of starting to tap into what's happening in the natural environment as a guide, but also still using your natural tendencies as kind of the North Star, so to speak, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? And so Chinese medicine is all about yin and yang. So it's all about balance, right? We have all these everything's in relationship with everything else. Everything's connected to everything else, and everything is an energy. And this is energy medicine. So it's not black or white. It's pretty gray, right? There's a lot of ebbs and flows, and that's what rhythm means, right? It's not consistent. It's not always the same. So we're working with people in their health. You're absolutely right. One of the first things we talk about is their consciousness and their mindfulness of what they are experiencing. And a lot of times I have patients who they have no idea what they're feeling emotionally. They're pretty out of touch with that part of themselves. And, as we all know, and those of us who have, studied trauma informed therapeutics, so to speak, or being helpers, right? With a trauma informed background, there's reasons for that. And so what I really love to share with people is what they're experiencing is normal. And if they want to feel better, we can absolutely do that together. So there's a lot of tools in Chinese medicine that we can rely on to help us feel more balanced, more peaceful, more at ease, more kind with ourselves, and more gentle. And it really also gives us an explanation for why things are happening. That's a bit different than Western medicine or other modalities of healing that I've experienced.
Absolutely. So, in that vein, talking about rhythms, I'd love to get an overview from you when we think about seasons and kind of the cycle of seasons. How does Chinese medicine really define the cycles of the seasons? Because, and I'm probably butchering this, but, I know that there's like kind of the calendar as we know it with, summer, winter, fall, and spring, but they're also transitional periods, right? So, how does Chinese medicine view this kind of life cycle, and what are the turning points that are really key throughout that when we think about the year?
Yeah. So in Chinese medicine, it's such a fun topic because I actually created a seasonal zine with an artist friend of mine. The zine is 5 seasons. And so for those of you who don't know, there are 5 seasons in Chinese medicine. We are currently in the fall season. And you're right, the length of time for each season is a bit different than the American or Western calendar. So to my knowledge, the fall season from a TCM background is August 26th through November 25th. So we're pretty close to switching to winter, right? And it doesn't always align with the solstice, which is what you might be talking about or what you would find in a farmer's almanac, right? So planting in the United States and planting rhythms is different. And also we're dealing with different countries here, right? So there isn't really a global understanding. We're working with ancient theory. So that's where it was in China at the time, and that's what they had set up. But what's fascinating is even in the Bay Area, when I'm looking at this calendar, I am noticing that shift. And people will talk about it too. They're like, oh, it's so cold now, and winter's still like a month away, right? And I always get curious, like, oh, maybe they were onto something with that, right? So this zine, it really starts to break everything up into chunks of the year, right? So we start with fall, which is where we are now. And it's all based on five element theory. If you've heard, I'm sure you've heard of that before. And everyone who's listening, five element theory is such a fabulous way to understand the seasons and the body from a TCM lens. And so the fall season is August 26th through November 25th, and it is the metal element. And then we go into winter, which is November 26th through February 4th, and it's the water element. And then we go to spring, which is February 5th through May 4th, wood element. And then summer season is May 5th through August 4th, fire element. And then late summer, which is an extra season that we're not really used to talking about around here. But in the Bay Area, we absolutely experience that, right? It gets so hot at the weirdest time, like October, right? Or maybe even in late August or in September. So we do experience late summer here. And that is traditionally August 5th through August 25th. And the element is the earth element. So all five seasons have an element, they have a period of time, and they even have a color and an emotion and a spirit and a planet and a climate and an energy related to them. And the organ systems related to each one help us explain maybe why we're feeling certain things in our bodies at certain times of the year, or maybe some deficiencies or excess conditions can come up a little bit more easily this in certain times of the year.
That is so fascinating. So when it comes to, and this is interesting because when this podcast will go live, we'll be like right in the early transition into winter. So when it comes to this transition point between fall to winter, before we dive into all the specifics of the winter season itself, what are some of the things to really think about? And like, is there a transitional period, right? Where perhaps, from a physical point of view, you're wearing one extra sweater, but from a physiological point of view or mental point of view, as you're experiencing this transition, are the transition points very sensitive historically? What are your thoughts on that?
So in TCM, they do mention nodes. And so nodes are these little transition points that happen throughout the season. And you could live by the nodes, but I feel like that's so specific that I think it's maybe a little bit more realistic to just go outside and see what the weather is.
Mm-hmm. Or just look at your app. Thank you,
Yeah.
technology these days.
Yeah, sure. Ask your cell phone, what's the weather outside, even though you could take like 5 steps and go see for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of taking the 5 steps. So
Very good point right
go
there.
outside, see what it feels like.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We rely way too much on our phones for things when they're so obvious and right in front of our faces. Yeah, a whole other conversation for another time.
We could definitely dig into that. So, since we are transitioning into the winter season now, can you share a bit about what winter represents? You mentioned the organ, the element. Can you give us kind of a quick overview and then we can dive into the specifics of what that means?
Absolutely. So, the spirit of winter, let's start with the organs. So, the organs of winter are going to be the kidney and the urinary bladder. The kidneys store the essence of the body, and our essence is the basis of our constitution. So the kidneys govern birth, growth, reproduction. They house our willpower, and they influence our marrow and our bones. And the bladder transforms fluids, right? Just knowing that about the season of winter, we can learn so much about ourselves, and we can dive into that deeper once we start talking about food and lifestyle and ways to support the kidney and urinary bladder during this time. The energy of winter season is yin within yin. So like I said before, everything Chinese medicine is all about yin and yang. And we have just winter is absolute yin. So it's a dark and cold season. It's a time for quiet hibernation and a moment to go inward. So not time to really push and be super social and travel the world and everything. It's a hibernation time, right? It's time to get quiet and really build up the energy for the next part of the year. The climate is cold, so it's really important to keep cozy, to seek warmth and clothing and in your surroundings. Wear layers, scarves, wool socks, keep your extremities warm, and love a bath ritual. So hot bath with a little sea salt and some kombu seaweed or whatever makes you feel connected to nature, or candles or just low lights, dim lights, and that quiet, nice heat. Hot tea, hot meals, and movement. The planet of winter is Mercury, and this is a planet of healthy communication. We've all heard of Mercury going into retrograde, right? But Mercury is also all about synthesizing information and curiosity. The color of winter is black. So we like to recommend that folks incorporate black foods into their diet, to sleep more, to pull the curtains down, the shades down, sleep in if you can, go to bed a bit earlier, and really create healthy boundaries around your sleep hygiene. So resting in the darkness, and like I said about the bath, lighting candles and turning the lights down low in the nighttime and limiting screen time to daytime if possible. The emotion of winter is fear. So it's common to feel fearful and anxious in the winter time. The emotion of the kidney is fear. So each of the organs have an emotion tied to them. So the kidney is fear. And I think it's important to be compassionate and loving with yourself at this time, and to learn, what helps soothe your nerves and how can you regulate your nervous system just for you. Because we all probably have different practices and maybe there's some overlap there, but yeah, the way that you find comfort might be different than the way that I find comfort, right? The taste of winter is salty. So we want to be eating naturally salty foods. You don't need to overdo it with actual table salt, not to be misunderstood there, but foods that balance and support the kidney and urinary bladder function, like sea vegetables and miso. So miso is fermented soy beans, right? And has that naturally salty flavor to it. And we can add it to soups and stews and sautés at the end so that it maintains its fermenty goodness and probiotic quality. And we're also benefiting from that salty flavor. A couple more. The body tissue of winter is the bones. And so caring for bone health during winter by performing weight-bearing exercise, strength training, taking a calcium supplement, vitamin D and K rich foods, and really paying attention to how much caffeine are you taking in each day. It's not really time to go overboard with coffees and teas and things like this. Alcohol, smoking habits should really kind of quiet down, because summertime's over, playtime is kind of ending, and that may be hard to change that habit for some of us. And it's really common for people to drink more alcohol and smoke more, or turn to these types of comforts in the wintertime because of there is less socializing that's going on, right? So just be mindful of your consumption with those things, because we want to restore the body this season and not harm it. The spirit of winter is willpower. So entering the spirit of willpower, drive, determination, and pursuing goals. I love the winter time to dream up what I vision for myself for the next year or even the next couple of years, and just really get into my journal, write that down, and start drawing out these visions and making them or inviting them into the material world. And then last but not least, the element of winter is water. And so water inspires flow, ease, rest, depth, darkness, and building our energy reserves. So again, with the bath, I love a winter bath.
Oh, I'm feeling so inspired for that. That's definitely what I'm going to be doing today. After this, you mentioned it twice. It's like subconscious programming. I love that. So I do find it really interesting that you mentioned, and I'm going to go back to one of the earlier points that you made around like winter being hibernation. Obviously, we do know that there are some animals that take this time to actually hibernate. And it's curious because this also happens to be such a festive time, right? Like, I know you mentioned that there maybe isn't as much socializing. And I would say that's probably true for January, February, where there's this kind of lull of the holidays. But in terms of socializing, we have Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, like all these different holidays that pop up. In fact, I personally typically feel over socialized, if not exhausted by it. And so I'd love to get your thoughts on, if the natural state of things is really to start to hibernate and slow down a bit, which is kind of the theme that I'm noticing. What happens when somebody or our society ends up going against the grain? Like, what are your thoughts on what kind of effect can that have on our bodies? Yeah. And also if you have any personal thoughts as to why on earth all the holidays happen to fall during this time, including my birthday, by the way, which is a holiday. So thank you. Like bring that all in there. But yeah, like thoughts on that. And then also what happens when we go against the grain of how nature typically regenerates during this time.
So everything you just listed, all these holidays, these are traditions. These have been around for a really, really long time, right? And when we are pulling from something like TCM, Eastern medicine, this was all created before that, right? So we have to remember that these are rhythms that are from nature, are within nature, and then we're trying to modernize them, right? So how do we fit these ancient modalities and theories into our modern life? And also what I think about when I hear all about all these holidays and social events, it's because people were isolated, right? Like we all used to live in the countryside and, community gatherings were what kept us going, right? It's a lot of these Hanukkah and Christmas, it's the celebration of light, right? So I think it does bring us hope for the next season as well. We have twinkle lights hanging in the windows. Folks are lighting their menorahs or their trees and so on and so forth and dancing and celebrating, because also there is the accumulation of we're operating from the Gregorian calendar. Is that what it's called? So we have the Gregorian calendar that takes us from January to December, and there is a lot to celebrate here too. And it's important to socialize. And one of my main points to patients even is do not isolate. This is not to say we should all just go hide in a hot bathtub and never open the door for 3 months.
See you in May.
Yeah.
I'll just be bathing. I'll be a shriveled up prune by the end of this. That's very salty, but shriveled.
And my skin will look amazing, but don't talk to me until then.
Exactly. I'll be glowing and dewy, but like I will have no friends.
That's not the point here at all. We need each other and we need community, and we have to keep supporting each other. And I love a celebration. It's so important for our emotional health and mental health to celebrate with one another and to meet up and to gather. So what you said before about feeling overwhelmed by all of that, to me, that's really common. And a lot of people found relief by the pandemic because they didn't have to go to all those things, right? Which is interesting. And it just boils down to consciousness and knowing yourself. So what actually do you need? And do you need to say no more? Like if you're exhausted socially and you need to rest your body more and be alone more and have more downtime, that's your body trying to tell you, hey, this doesn't feel natural to me. It's not like something that you need to really push against. If you are feeling extremely fatigued, you should rest. It's kind of simple as that, right? And it is a balance. So I'm not trying to promote like, everyone should say no to their families or don't travel for the holidays or don't, go to parties and don't say yes to events. But you should listen to what it is that your body needs. And it's okay to say no, thank you to a party here and there or a gathering sometimes.
Absolutely. So, shifting gears in terms of imbalance, one of the things that I found very interesting is, the color during this time is black foods, draw your curtains, maybe sleep more. And I think that That definitely is what my body craves. And luckily, I think also we're here in California. It's a very sunny place. We definitely still get a lot of sun, even if it's freezing when we go outside. But wintertime is also a time that is really prone for a lot of people to have them experience seasonal affective disorder. I think it affects, I wrote down here, like 0.5 to 3% of the general population. And that's obviously tied very closely to light. This is a time where, you maybe don't have as much of that light exposure. From the Chinese medicine point of view, I'm curious, was this type of pattern obviously translated differently to East Asian medicine, but has that ever come up in the text? What are your thoughts if you experience or you have a patient that is experiencing that sort of symptoms of seasonal affective disorder? Like, what does that kind of, in your mind as a practitioner, circle back to?
Great question. Yes, people definitely are affected by the wintertime and the darkness that is outside. The days are shorter, it is colder, and it all goes back to what we were talking about before. It's the season of the kidney and the emotion is sadness. And so it's really natural to dip during this time of year. And when folks come into the clinic with seasonal affectivity disorder, I always like to check in on, I know it's cold outside, but are you getting out there? The sun is still behind the clouds, right? There's still light waves that are coming down onto the earth every single day. So you can go outside and get that 30-minute walk in, go for a bundle up, super cozy and warm, and get outside. And sure, that's different if it's like 19 degrees outside. And that's where things like light therapy can be helpful, or going in to see your acupuncturist and getting under the infrared heat lamp and talking to someone about what's going on and making sure that you have support from your community or a therapist or a family or friend or, somebody like that, because that is really common and it does affect a lot of people.
I think that's a really good point, especially the getting out there, which I know can be so hard. We're so fortunate on the West Coast, but when I lived on the East Coast, that was a little bit harder. I mean, we weren't working from home, so I feel like it makes it even easier to find yourself just all day inside. But I think that's just such an interesting observation, or I guess suggestion, which is to actually get outside, which is connecting with nature, but also the rays of light that are there. So, in terms of the emotional state, and I've always been really curious about this, you mentioned that the emotion during this time, sadness or fear, how do you determine if something is imbalanced, right? So if the emotion of this season is that we might be prone to those emotions, what does it mean to feel them in like a natural state, right? I guess that there's like a sense of like grieving or fear for the sense of transition. I'm trying to relate to my own experience, or there's this big unknown because it's, I guess, in our time, it's not the Chinese New Year, but in our time, it's like the New Year, but it is this point of like transition. But how do you recognize if the emotion comes from a state of imbalance? Because it is natural that the emotion surfaces during this time, or it might be more prominent during this time. What are your thoughts on determining that?
So when something is really, I don't love to use the words right or wrong with people, but when something is really affecting someone very deeply and they know, that's when it's time to do something. And, it's really hard to answer that question because we are all individuals and this medicine is so customized that we all experience emotion on a spectrum, right? So something that may be really deep or painful for you could be a totally different experience for the person sitting next to you. And it really doesn't matter because you're just experiencing it and it's your experience. And so it's always a good idea to get support. Emotions are normal. We're all emotional people. We all have sadness at some point in our lives. And to express that is healthy, and to find support around it is a very good choice, right?
Yeah, I think that probably goes back to the earlier point that you made around self-reflection being so key. So it's just even so interesting. I was talking to my therapist the other day. Shout out, Lori. You get shout outs frequently on here. But I was talking about my own kind of emotional dip over this past weekend, and we were kind of reflecting on around like what could have triggered it. Was it an event? And, it ended up kind of tying back to it being like the first day of my cycle, totally open to like share about that. But just to even reflect on how our biochemistry can affect things and recognizing in that case, like, okay, this is something that happens to me normally, like this is within normal bounds of my emotions that at least I've noticed, versus something that starts to like spiral out of control and maybe is causing insomnia, like emotions like that, which I know are very far out on my spectrum of what feels good to me and what I'm used to. So I think that's probably a key activity, it sounds like, to start to tap into in general. But with winter being this inward time, starting to tap into what's normal for you, because it's individualized versus not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all experience something different. And that's kind of what's really amazing about humanity is you'll never know what it feels like to be in someone else's body. And I always love to talk to patients about that too, whether it's with the zine, this is it's just a guide, it's really not to be taken super seriously or, to the T. It's really just recommendations and take what you want from it. And if other things don't resonate with you, then don't do them. And that's kind of how, you can really live your life in a lot of different ways. So it's amazing that, you have taken the initiative that when you feel these dips, you reach out to your support network, which sounds like you have a great therapist and you have family and friends and people to bounce things off of. And, it's always really important to know that, the emotions are like weather, right? And that it's also related to exactly what we're talking about. They come and they go, they change. And then sometimes if they stick around for a really long time, that's a great signal from your body that it's time to get support and it's time to talk to a professional and either grab like get on someone's schedule for therapy or go to acupuncture or talk to your doctor. There's lots of people out there who want to help and be supportive for you. It's really the best way to take care of yourself is to do what feels the most achievable to you and your lifestyle, your income level, what do you have access to? So yeah, and even asking people for support to help you find those things is an amazing tip too. Because when we are dipping that low, we don't always feel like we can take care of ourselves, right? So it's kind of like being sick with a cold or a flu. When you're out of balance in that way, your Wei Qi is out of balance and you've caught a virus or a pathogen, it's so hard to think clearly, isn't it? Right? When we're sick like that, and it's hard to take care of yourself. And I think of that with emotional health too, is we need other people to help us.
Absolutely. So, in terms of practices that we can do to really honor and tap into the winter season, and I know that there's so many. So, maybe we can choose like one for the physical body, maybe like
Sure.
one around nutrition, one around the physical body, which I know you've already planted some seeds, no pun intended, right around that. One for the physical body, one for nutrition, maybe one for like your mental, spiritual health. What are some suggestions that you would have for people? Baths being the foundational thing that everyone should try to do. If you don't have a bath, maybe it's a foot bath, right? Like, yeah.
Hot shower does, also works too.
Hot shower. Okay.
Sure. So for winter season, see, movement. Well, first of all, I highly recommend if you don't already have a copy of our zine, you should pick one up. We have it for sale on our website through our online shop. We have the cutest and most amazing wellness shop at the Garden Wellness Clinic. So definitely pick one of those up. We'll mail you one as a physical copy. It's super cute. And you can even hang it up on your fridge because part of it is a book and the other side is a poster that has recipes on the back per season. So you can grab a magnet and put it on the fridge for you and change it each season. It's the intention there. And yes, so that comes with a PDF download for your computer. So you can pull it up real quick and also have the physical copy. And you'll notice inside the zine, we do mention all these things. And there's grocery lists and tips for food and herbs and things like that. But what I'll tell you now in terms of the body for winter, let's see. So movement methods, right? We want to care for the kidneys, the urinary bladder, care for the body. I like to recommend slowing down fitness and exercise. Keeping up with fitness and exercise, super important, but listen to your body. If you're feeling resistant to maintain that like high intensity cardio 5 times a week, maybe it's not time for that for the next couple months. Maybe it's time to start with some slow yoga in the morning, some sun salutations, standing poses, get sweaty, promote your chi and your blood flow. You want your channels and meridians to be wide open and receptive to, all of the abundant energy in the world. And also, it is that time to go inward. So meditation, Pilates, weight training, Qigong, just more balancing methods in the mix of your cardiovascular fitness as well, right? So again, it's so hard to tell everyone what to do the same. It doesn't work that way, but these are just some gentle kind of nudges of, oh, maybe it's time to tone it down a notch, and then you can pick it back up in the spring. So for your body, clothing is important to note. So maintaining warmth in the body and the limbs is really essential this season. Wearing socks or house shoes when you're at home, it's that hibernation time. So we want to add that second blanket to the bed. We want to layer up before going outside. I love a long john under the pants.
Me too.
Yeah. And there's no need to suffer or be cold. So watch the crop tops in the winter months and switch it to sweaters and tanks and layers and scarves and gloves and things. Yeah. So rhythms for eating, we want to make sure that we're eating hot food, warm food. It's a great time for a tray bake, focusing on soups and stews and roasted veggies, spicy flavors like chipotles and peppers, ginger, turmeric, cumin, clove. Think about all those holiday spices. Those are really amazing for this season. And adding a healthy fat to each of your meals. Highly recommend that for body and brain health. I always notice that I can think more clearly and feel more grounded when there's a healthy fat in my dishes. Mm-hmm. Things we don't want to do during the winter time are going to be lots of frozen or icy things. So scale back on the ice cream, scale back on the smoothies. If you need a protein shake or some type of smoothie to supplement your diet, then, it may sound a little strange, but you could try steaming your fruit before you blend it.
I do that.
You do?
I put yams in my smoothie as a substitute for potatoes.
That's great.
Like steamed yams. Oh my gosh.
Steamed. I love it. Check. Yeah, you can even steam a banana, which I know sounds pretty strange.
A little strange. I don't know if I would do that. I'll try it, but
I know. It's out there, but try it. But steamed spinach, things like that, and then blending it, and just make sure you add that ginger and the warming spices so it's not so cold on the body. Yeah. And then I love breath work, meditation work, introspective, like we're talking about before. The theme is death. Wintertime is death time. And yeah, fear, sadness, it's all really normal in the winter months. So yeah, solitude, time to go deeply inward. Or one idea that I like to share with students or patients is a death meditation. Have you ever done one of those?
No.
Yeah. So it's kind of all about, what can you let go of? What's distracting or using your energy that you could transform or redirect into a new project or area of your life? Death meditation, there's a couple ways to go about it. One way is kind of what I was just saying, really simple. You let go of aspects of your life or habits or people or things that aren't serving you anymore. Make a list and even, take it outside into a really safe space and light it on fire so that it's contained, under control. But
stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. But yeah, writing it all down on a list, visualizing it, seeing it, breathing with it, and then lighting it on fire and letting it burn and singe and die off, essentially, right? And letting it go. So you have a little bit of a practice or a ritual around that experience. And another death meditation that's a little bit more black diamond slopes is your own death and working with that. And so there are yoga teachers and meditation leaders out there that will lead you on a death meditation of your own death. And it's fascinating what comes up when you do that.
Wow. Okay. I have not tried that, but I'm definitely curious about it. And I feel like I've definitely been leaning into this winter season a bit more, like slowing down, sleeping in. So I feel like that should be next on the list. Oh, that sounds fascinating. Okay. So, Anne, I could truly keep speaking with you for hours, but we are coming up on time. So, I want to make sure that I give you a chance to share with our audience where can they find you? What do you have coming up? Definitely have everyone pick up a zine, which I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I have the fall copy and I cannot wait to get the winter copy myself. But yeah, we're going to deep link everything below, but give everyone an overview so they know where to go.
Yes, thank you. So, y'all can come find us at the Garden Wellness Clinic in San Francisco, California, in person for acupuncture and body work, for acupuncture facials, which I have to pause and tell you more about because we didn't get into that during our podcast today. So, our acupuncture facials are probably, I'm biased, but the best around and definitely in the Bay Area because this facial was designed by myself and also my master esthetician friend, Justine Kahn from Botnia Skincare. So these are botanical facials that include a custom face mask made with herbs and flowers and hydrosols that are grown literally 15 minutes from the clinic in Sausalito. And we have massage and hot towels, and you can hear the fountain and the birds outside, and you're on this warm treatment table, and you're getting a full body acupuncture treatment plus the acupuncture facial. And we also offer LED light therapy and infrared therapy. So it's just out of this world amazing. And I feel like everyone should experience it at least once in their life. So definitely come and see us for a facial. You can find us on Instagram at thegardenSF and visit our website, www.thegardensf.co. And on there, we have a link to our wellness shop where you can order online your herbs, your tea, some beautiful skincare, of course, and pick it up in person at the clinic. And yeah, we can't wait to meet you if we haven't met you yet, and look forward to seeing you at the garden soon.
Amazing. And wait, one more question. When is the next zine coming up? Because I know we have your winter one is live, like when this goes live, actually, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, winter is live. And to be honest, all the seasons are live. I created this zine with an artist friend of mine, Kristen Morabito, a couple of years ago. And so we sell the zine as a 5-season set, or you can sign up for a subscription. We send one out once a season. And you can also purchase the zine on our website inside the wellness shop. And it comes with a physical copy and a digital download.
I love that. I'm going to be creeping on those recipes. And this was such a pleasure. Thank you so, so much for joining me on this episode.
Thank you, Kasia. So nice to reconnect with you and talk with you today.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Nourish. If you enjoyed this conversation, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Reviews really help this podcast grow and reach a larger audience, and I'm so grateful for that. I publish new episodes twice a month, so hit the subscribe button to be notified. See you next time.